And we are live on the PHU Dynasty podcast. This is episode 77, and we are bringing you a recap of week 3 and week 4 of our action here in the PHU Dynasty League. Lots of close games recently, lots of movement up and down the standings. But after 4 weeks, you can get a pretty good sense of where teams are at, kind of get an idea of where everybody's trending towards or trending down, or what needs to happen next. But just in general, lots of good games. Just it's kind of just a weird year for fantasy, Sean. I don't really know how best to describe it, but it
feels
just
like we're still making our way through like a preseason or something.
It does feel like week season pre-2, or like the preseason week 2. It's just a little sloppy here. Not a lot of great defense being played, but it just kind of feels like offense in general is just kind of down. Especially if you look at the leaders at the different positions, especially tight end. It's completely a wasteland.
Yeah. I felt like I was on a cloud watching that Lions game last night. I was like, oh my god, we're back.
Yeah, like quality offense. Yeah, just it's kind of sad that there hasn't been that much quality overall on the offense. But I still think there's time for it to turn around, and I think some of these rookies are getting more acclimated and will eventually get better. But all right, so let's go to week 3. We're going to recap the week 3 and week 4 games here. So we'll start at the top of my list, and I had the Lauderdale Lionheads taking down your Texas Armadillos 128-86. Just a true flop performance from my team. A couple of key injuries, one of them being Jaylen Warren leaving with a knee injury. He did not play last week and only got 3 carries in the week 3 game. So just not a good showing there. And then, Jameson Williams with the 0.2 doesn't help anything. And Jake Elliott 1 point as a kicker, a lot of 4s, 4, 4, 3. So just an off day, really. And, if you kind of look at Devon Achane there against the Seahawks in that terrible week 3 game, just really couldn't get anything going either, honestly, this week or last week. For the Dolphins, it's really rough. It's hard to watch. I mean, even I had both of those games on last night and on different screens, and I was just like, man, I never looked to the other screen. It just wasn't worth it.
They've cultivated such an offense around what Tua does that you can't run the offense when anybody else is there.
You just need somebody that's pretty accurate, has a decent deep ball, and they can't find that right now. So it's not working. And then Jalen Hurts in this performance, only 11 points, no touchdowns whatsoever in that week 3 game against New Orleans. Not a good showing. And that was actually Nico Collins' down week at 8.6 points. Which is kind of interesting.
Wide receiver in fantasy.
Yeah, he's been on fire. But yeah, just kind of a dud performance from my team. But give credit to the Lauderdale Lionheads. Really excellent running back performances with David Montgomery. 23 carries, 105 yards, a touchdown, 19 points. Jonathan Taylor with 23 carries, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns for 26 points. So that, alone was an excellent performance. And Sean, going from week 1 to 2 and now into 3 and 4, what a turnaround for Terry McLaurin. I mean, we were.
I said it on the podcast. I was like,
we couldn't be.
They listened to the podcast here.
The PHU media, as much as everybody says, we don't have an agenda, we have an agenda. All right, we're going to push good players. Terry. We're going to push good players. Terry McLaurin, we love him.
It's spooky season. We need Scary Terry.
I love Scary Terry, and just for Vince's team, with having Cooper Kupp going down in that second week as well, and then getting the kind of turnaround performance for McLaurin really has helped this squad in the early goings, and really had a nail biter last week. Could easily be 4-0 right now. Just a really good overall season start for the Lionheads. A couple other notable performances, Bijan Robinson with his ho-hum 11 points. Kind of seems like kind of what it's settling into now is kind of that, it's 8 to 12 range for him. And I'd like to see him score more touchdowns, Sean. It's just crazy.
I still have confidence the Falcons their offense is going to get better as the year goes on, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't play any starters in the preseason. really they just
Kirk can't move.
Kirk can't move yet. No, and it's a new offense, so it's going to take time for it to gel. And yeah, we are in week 5 though, so I was kind of hoping something would happen faster, but it's kind of par for the course with kind of all the teams this year. Just not a whole lot of high flying offense going around unless you play for the Minnesota Vikings or something. So going back to Vince's squad here, a couple of good performances, 2 solid performances. Kyler Murray for 16, Demario Douglas for 7.8, which was his best week of the season. So that worked out nicely. Trey McBride ended up getting hurt in this game. I believe it was a concussion. So he did not play week 4, but really looked good in that second week. So more good to come from him. And Christian Kirk really turned it around as well over the last couple of weeks. Last time we talked about Christian Kirk, he had 3 points in 2 weeks, and since he's had 19 in weeks 3 and 4. So a nice turnaround there. Despite how bad are the Jags? The Jags are really bad.
I can't believe he's still the head coach on Monday or Tuesday now. Him and we get to the Eagles eventually, but yeah, that's surprising.
Yeah, he just did not have it. So
did you see him like throw the players under the bus in his press conference?
I did see that. Yeah, it was a rough press conference. Not good.
Ooh.
Like, to me, that's a fired coach right there. Like, in my head, like, you just see something like that, and it doesn't end well usually. All right, so once again, Lionheads take down the Armadillos 128-86. We'll go to our next game on the list, and that's going to be the Long Gamers and Cheese Fries. Excellent week for your Lake Lure Long Gamers with 168, pulling tremendous performances from Lamar Jackson, who had a great rushing day against Dallas for 27 points. James Cook also a pretty effective day at 14.7. Alvin Kamara for 12.7. So just good performances from the top of your lineup there. Going down the list, a good Drake London week. So you'll love to see that.
He's been fine. I'm not worried at all.
He's been solid. I mean, he's getting tons of targets. He's had 12 targets and 9 targets over the last 2 weeks. 6 catches each of those weeks for 60-ish yards. I mean, I feel like it's going to just continue ascending for him. I don't really see. I feel like this is kind of his floor right now.
And 6 for 60 something. Yeah, I would say so.
I think that's a safe floor because, I mean, it's not coming from Kyle Pitts right now. Darnell Mooney has done a fine job in that role. But I don't think he's going to take away any of this floor here for London. So I like that. This is a huge week for Dallas Goedert shares with 18 points, 11 targets, 10 catches, 170 yards. And then followed up with a nice week this past week against Tampa as well. But it seems like he's kind of turning it around, and he's actually the tight end 1 right now, Sean. So congrats for having the tight end 1.
Somehow. I don't know if that's actually an accomplishment, but
right now it doesn't feel like that. But to have anybody at the tight end position getting 6 points feels good right now. So I would like to have him just because at least you know what you're going to get somewhat. Then you go to Jordan Mason, 8.8 points, kind of his down week so far, honestly, is 22 points, 17 points, 8.8, and then back to 23. So, even in a down week, he's still pulling out 80 yards. Yeah. Kyron Williams, huge explosion week, 24 carries, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns, also added a receiving touchdown. He's your guy.
He's just the last man standing in Los Angeles right now. There's nobody else to give the ball to.
No, I mean, they really don't have anything left on offense. Sean, I got to ask you, why'd you put him in the flex? Because, a guy like Kyron, I feel like he deserves the respect of being in the running back slot. It's very important to me.
Did I put him in the flex?
He was in the flex for some reason.
I think Cook was maybe, and he was that the Thursday night game?
Against Jacksonville.
No, that was a Monday night game, right? Or Sunday?
I think it was a primetime game of some kind.
Dude, I don't remember.
Yeah, there's some of the Monday night games have been shit. So,
I'll pull the Thursday night guys out of the flex spots, but I don't remember.
Yeah, it's all right. Well, anywho, and then a 22-point performance from Green Bay against Tennessee, which is just excellent. And they've been a great defense so far. I believe they're the number 2 defense this year.
That's surprising because they're honestly when you watch them, it's not really that impressive of a defense, but
Well, it looks like they've had a zillion picks. I mean, they had 2 picks against Philly, 3 against Indy, 2 against Tennessee, and then 1 this past week against Minnesota. So they're just
Xavier McKinney is having like an all-pro year.
8 picks in 4 weeks. I mean, granted, all those quarterbacks, I guess even Darnold for them and Hurts, like they like to throw picks. So it's
Hurts
kind of
loves the ball over.
And this week they get the Rams. I mean, it's gonna be more great performance. I think it's great early season schedule for the Packers. Going to the other side of the lineup here, Sean, chili cheese fries put up 111. They were projected for 130, so a disappointment, you could say. Even at a 111 number. Dak Prescott, really good week against Baltimore, fantasy wise. Yeah, a lot of garbage time, but for fantasy, 34 points, pretty sweet. Both running backs, Breece Hall and Jahmyr Gibbs, looking very nice for 14 points and 16 points respectively. I think we should probably talk about Garrett Wilson. Just his start to the season has been so strange. What do you make of Garrett Wilson right now, Sean?
It felt so strong the first half of that first game and against the 49ers where he was just getting hyper targeted. And then like ever since that first half, it's just something that's felt off. Now, like he's gone against good corners so far this year. I mean, Tre'Davious Ward is a good corner. L'Jarius Sneed is a good corner. Christian Gonzalez is a good corner. And then Patrick Surtain is the best corner in the NFL. So like his matchups haven't been easy, but there's nothing happening in the Jets offense that like is an easy button for him to like get like a crosser, like a mesh, like anything like that happening. And it's just everything's so hard for him to do, like to get open.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a modern offense. It kind of feels like when you watch their games, it's Nathaniel Hackett going back to like what the McCarthy offense was back, when he was in Green Bay. Lots of like outside developing routes, back shoulder throws, and like Garrett Wilson, like you said, if you can get him on like those mesh concepts that are always just wide open, like complete cheat codes nowadays, he seems like the perfect guy for that. They're just not doing it.
He's been open downfield, and it just feels like Rodgers just doesn't have the patience to sit in the pocket and like get hit or like risk a hit to get it down there. He just wants to like matriculate down the field, to use that word.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sad because, I mean, we're talking about wide receiver 45 on the year right now. Projected top 10, fantasy asset at the receiver position this year.
He would definitely be a buy low in like a redraft league for me right now. I'm not that worried, but
yeah, I mean, it'll turn around.
Yeah,
but at the same time, it's just you got to keep plugging him into your lineup and keep taking.
Yeah, you gotta.
That L basically, which kind of stinks until it turns around. DJ Moore has been a very solid player over the last few weeks, but just nothing like super crazy. I mean, it's solid in terms of fantasy. I mean, just he's getting your 7 and 8 points the last couple of weeks. I mean,
week 4 was his best week, and he was wide receiver 31.
I'm not saying he's great or anything. I'm just saying like solid, I guess, if you're looking for like 8 points just in your lineup. But I mean, everybody's expecting more out of the Bears, so myself included. I just feel like this next week against Carolina should really
be that. It should be. Caleb was probably his best game, I would say.
He looked good last week. He just didn't have to do a whole lot, which is what you want. Like, you don't want him to have to do everything.
And the Rams defense is terrible.
They're not good.
They have no corners.
Their line doesn't get much pressure. I feel like for more to really, and then that whole offense to really take off like this, I think Carolina is going to be one of their best chances. So because their defense is terrible too, and then they get Jacksonville the week after. So. Not terrible matchups. Going down the list, Mark Andrews 0.
I don't know what's going on.
I don't either, and I was going to ask, do you know what's going on? Because I don't know what's going on.
I feel like I don't know, like if a player isn't injured in a game, do they have to like disclose an injury on the injury report?
I feel like that you have to. Any injury has to be disclosed, I thought. So,
and it's like the big problem is like he's not really playing that much.
I mean, he's playing 33% of the snaps week 3, 46% of the snaps on week 4, and he had 1 target in both of those games, no catches. I mean, it's just crazy. I
It's
don't know
not
what's
like
wrong.
as of week 1, it's not like Isaiah Likely's been like taking over. He's got like a catch, I think, each of the last 2 games.
It's just, I mean, the tight
Just
ends
more than Mark Andrews,
combined over the last 2 weeks for the Ravens have caught 2 passes for all their tight ends. So it's just they're just not part of the game plan right now.
It feels like it's just all flowing through the running backs. Like even like Justice Hill is second on the
solid,
team
yeah.
receiving. He's second on the team in receiving yards.
That's crazy.
He's the second running back. It doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. I feel like I don't think you could start Andrews anymore at this point. I mean, until you see something.
Dude, I've got him in redraft and I don't know what to do because I don't want to drop him.
You can't. I mean, you can't drop him based on talent.
I've got the freaking buddy system with him and Isaiah Likely, and
and neither one of them are doing anything. It's crazy. What's weird is it's not like it's like I thought this to myself when I was watching the other day. I was like, is Mark Andrews like washed? But he's only 29. Like he's been in the league for so long. He's not washed, but that's what I'm saying. Like if he feels like he's been in the league so long, and I guess in my head I thought he was older than he actually is, but you know, I think there's not game planned right now.
It's got to be like one of the weirdest or biggest like fantasy mysteries of like the last couple of years. Like what's happening with him?
It's so strange. I mean, we're talking, former tight end 1 overall, 1,361 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2021. Like that's
why would you not want him involved in your offense?
Yeah, I don't understand why, but I guess we'll find out more as they go into these next couple of games if that's truly going to keep the pace. Because right now it's a scary proposition to start him. This was a down week for James Conner here for Tibbs as well. He had 16, 19, 2. Back to 18, so just the outlier week there, unfortunately. Hit at the wrong time. All right, let's go to the next game. I got Bombers 169 to Muskrats 102. Big win for the Bombers week 3 to keep the train rolling. A very good start to the season for the Bombers. Obviously made a big trade prior to the season for the running backs that really seems to be paying off, as we get into the early parts of the season. Let's start at the top. We got Joe Burrow for 32. Great performance. Burrow's been one of the more consistent quarterbacks over the last few weeks after a really shitty week 1.
Yeah, well, he doesn't like week 1s, so
he does not. He's never. I don't think I've ever seen him play good or play at all in week 1. So I'm impressed that he was able to turn it around pretty quick. 2 touchdowns in each of his last 3 games. Had 3 touchdowns in this week 3 matchup against Washington. The Bengals offense kind of looked really good last week, but they also played Carolina. So I'd like to see next week against Baltimore how that kind of shapes up. But they've been a solid.
Baltimore's gettable over the air, and I mean, we'll see. I think there'll be points in that game. I don't know how Cincinnati is going to stop their running game because they're so bad, like on the defensive front.
Yeah, they just don't have any talent. Like it used to be like they had so much good talent up there, and they just don't have it.
I don't think they've hit a draft pick since Chase.
It's been a long time. And it's funny because Vince will tell you this too, that back in the day, we loved all the Bengals draft picks. Like every year it felt like, oh, what a great value. Oh, like it was always them and the Ravens just scooping up the value. And in recent years, I just don't feel like they've been, drafting players I love or, really taking many solid quality players. Just a lot of like risky kind of guys that either work out or don't.
They're gonna be in a weird spot if they're gonna have to pay these guys and they're not hitting on draft picks because like they're not gonna like they don't do like the fudge the cap stuff that like the other teams do because they're such a small market and the owner can't barely pay like the escrow when like a deal is signed. So
they're not going to be like up against the cap kind of team if they don't have to be. With Burrow, Chase, Higgins, if they end up paying Higgins, it's going to be a tight squeeze. But I kind of don't think they're going to pay Higgins. I feel like he's just going to end up walking at some point.
They might not pay Chase.
I don't know. I would keep Chase. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. But
I would too. I just don't know if he physically can afford it.
Yeah, it's like you might have to take out a loan to go get him. Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think he had to take out a loan for Burrow.
That is so wild to even think about that an owner has to take out a loan to pay for a quarterback, like a good franchise quarterback. It's wild. All right, so Zach Charbonnet had a huge week actually in week 3 against Miami. 18 carries, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Productive
Really,
backfield this year.
yeah, they're just moving the ball, and I think that type of offense where it's just really geared around the running game is going to work out well for the Seahawks this year.
Yeah,
getting Kenny Walker back this week helped a lot too.
You can't crowd the box when you got top 10 quarterback in the league, Geno Smith, back there. So
seriously, I'm eating crow. I'll take it. I've been saying all off season that I don't think he's that good, but he's not that bad.
Dude, I'd take him and Baker over Jalen Hurts.
Dude, the quarterback play this year, I would. Yeah, well, I wouldn't take him over Baker still, but I'll take him over Hurts at this point as a passer. There's no doubt.
You still like Baker more than Geno?
I'm still taking Baker, but that's probably just some bias there. So there's probably some bias.
Yeah,
I just love Baker. I love the hustle. I love his aura. I think he works perfect for this team.
Yeah. Well, this isn't an ESPN debate show. I won't stick us up for talking about quarterbacks for too long. We can keep going.
I do love me some Baker, but yes, I do think I'm coming around on Geno Smith. I'll put it that way. I just didn't see it a lot last year, and I'm seeing a lot more this year. So let's keep going down the list here for the Bombers. Really good performances again from Chris Godwin, Marvin Harrison Jr., both of them putting up nice 11 and 12-point days. Jaden Reed also had a solid week 3, even though he was playing with Malik Willis, 4 for 50. Not a bad week really at all. Really blew up this past week. Yeah, Kyle Pitts.
It's a week 4.
Kyle Pitts, dude. I don't know. What is life?
I think I'm out. I think I'm officially out. I was in. New offense, a year away from the injury. I don't know.
I gotta tell you, I just don't feel like I watched some of his tape from this past week on Twitter this morning, and I was just he looks slow, and it's sad, like, because I don't remember that. And if you go back and watch his rookie tape, 1,000-yard receiver, like, he was explosive, and I just didn't see that from this past week. I was pretty underwhelmed overall. Like, they got him lined up on the outside like a receiver. He's not nearly fast enough to get any sort of separation right now. I feel like he needs to go back to being like in that tight end role so he can at least line up against some linebackers and give him a chance. But it's right now, like, the way that they're deploying him is just sad. Like, it's just like, this isn't what I expected or what anybody expected after his great rookie year. So, I mean, I don't know how you could start him right now. But there's nobody else to start. That's the problem. He's the number 12 tight end and he hasn't done anything.
Yeah, it's just a fluky, not fluky tight end or a touchdown week 1, but like a broken play.
3 for 26 and a touchdown. It's just not a lot.
And I don't think Justin has another tight end that he can really play, right? He's got him and he's got Hawkinson, who's on PUP, and
it hasn't done anything. Yeah, I mean, right now I think you just got to keep trotting him out there till Hawkinson's back. It's tough though. Tough for the Pitts collective. Moving down the list, Deontay Johnson finally got his explosion weeks with a real quarterback at the helm. That's the Deontay Johnson when we were talking preseason. It's like, this is what we thought it was going to be. Just hyper targeted.
Give the ball to your best player's offense, Dave Canales. Like, he doesn't overcomplicate things. He's like, this is the guy that gives us the best chance of doing anything. Throw him the ball.
He did it with the Bucs. He's doing it here. Yeah, I do love it to an extent. I feel like at some point that well has to run dry, in tougher matchups and stuff. But when you're playing the Raiders and Cincinnati, you can get away with that kind of thing. So, really turning around the outlook for Johnson here. Over the last 2 weeks since we last did a podcast, basically he's completely turned around his season. So, pretty sweet. Jamar Chase for 24, after a couple of slower week 1 and 2, he's really turned it on. He had 6 for 118 and 2 touchdowns in that week 3 performance. Big numbers for the Bombers. So that's just, really great 170-point performance for the Bombers. This is kind of what the expectation is now with just how solid the starting roster has kind of taken shape. So I'm expecting them to contend.
He had the Juwan Jennings 36-point bomb on the bench too.
I didn't even see that down there. Jeez. Yeah, that was well. What was anybody a bigger bench warmer in history than than that? Like, I feel like how many people actually started him that week? I would love to
I
know the
had him in
numbers.
redraft, and I started Shaheed over him.
Oh no.
I was going back and forth, and I was like, Shaheed goose last week. He won't goose again, and he didn't goose, but he definitely didn't have.
Yeah, it's not that basically.
Yeah,
It definitely hurts to have on the. I mean, if he started, you're talking a 200-point week. That's pretty wild. Let's go over to the Muskrats now. Off
we
to a
have
1-3 start. This was at the time was their 0-3 number. Just nothing from DeAndre Swift those first 3 weeks. Obviously, we'll get to the week 4 blow up, but
Sell.
nothing.
Sell.
Yeah, Najee Harris has been just the most average 70-yard performance kind of guy over the last 4 weeks, basically since the season started.
Change him. His name is just Mendoza. He's just the.
He's just the guy. He looks slow. He looks slow, man. When you watch him play, it's like, wow, this guy just doesn't have
linebacker for the Colts. I think it was Zaire Franklin. After the game, he was like, that boy runs soft. And then he was talking about Cordero Patterson. He's like, fuck that. We didn't want to see that guy. That guy was running like his hair was on fire.
That's crazy when you have somebody saying, we don't want to see a 32-year-old Cordero Patterson instead of Najee Harris. That's pretty wild.
He's 33.
Is he 33 now?
33.
Wow. He's older than I initially had thought. I mean, I just had
Najee
to
Harris.
I just had to throw it in there while we have the opportunity. All right, let's go down the list further. Yeah, T. Higgins a 3 for 6. This was his first game back. 3 for 6 for 39. Not a good performance there. Calvin Ridley 1 for 9 yards. He's been terrible over the last 2 weeks.
Hopkins came back.
Hopkins came back. He's had 2 points in 2 weeks. Got a good performance out of Jacoby Myers.
Should be getting more good performances from Jacoby Myers.
I mean, but potentially. I mean, that's an interesting discussion we'll have to have when we get back to Dan's team. Let's keep going down the list here. So, Sam Laporta, boy, what a weird year for Laporta too. I mean, he's another one. After the first 2 weeks, we're like, oh, let's not hit the panic button. Are you panicking more now, Sean? After seeing another couple of weaker performances?
No, just because of the most recent week, he didn't look hurt. He looked fine. Goff only threw the ball 18 times. He completed 18
for 18.
And I mean, he caught all 4 of his targets. I mean, I'm not going to do the quick maths on that one, but like a target share wise, it's probably like over 15% or like close to 20%. It's like that for a tight end. That's fine. I think it's just, I don't know. The touchdowns aren't there yet. And Goff hasn't really thrown very many touchdown passes. He's caught a touchdown pass, but he's only thrown like 2 or 3.
No, it hasn't been. I think. Let me see. Goff has thrown for 5 total touchdowns in 4 weeks. So he's thrown 2 the last 2 games, 2 each, I should say.
JMO has like 3 of them. That's right.
Yeah, it's always those like broken long play touchdowns. Yeah. It seems like. I'm not totally concerned. I feel like this offense is still just kind of evolving as they're using Jameson more as an explosive player, and they don't have to hyper target just one person anymore.
I think it's just the trend of tight ends too. Like if tight ends weren't so down this year, like it would probably feel worse. But like,
if you drafted him with a 3rd round pick in redraft, you feel terrible right now.
Yeah, that's rough. Or a 4th round pick on Mark Andrews feels worse.
Either one of those, yeah. I'm so happy I punted tight end this year. I'll put it that way in redraft.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
That's weird out there. Speaking of terrible, Ramondre Stevenson over the last couple of weeks
went from
being one of the, our last podcast, we're talking about him being one of the heroes of the early part of the season. Now he's been awful in the last 2 games.
All 4 games, man. Got a fumble.
I didn't even see that. Wow. That is pretty wild. And he still got his job. That's pretty wild.
He came back and played in the second half too. So they obviously know they need to get him going. Like it's not. I don't think
they don't have a choice.
Yet, but
what else are they going to do on offense?
They've got Antonio Gibson, who also has been terrible at fumbling the ball in his career. So.
Yeah, it's just a lot of fumbles to go around there. Yeah, they just got to stop turning the ball over. I mean, it was 2 lost fumbles the last 2 weeks too. Yeah, so just obviously he's had some tough matchups here the last couple of weeks with the Jets and the 49ers. Both are solid run defenses. So, I mean, I'm not going to kill him too much, but he's got to get it going here soon, especially for the hopes of the Muskrats, to try to climb out of the hole that they're currently in. But luckily for the Muskrats, Chuba Hubbard has significantly turned it around the last couple of weeks with Andy Dalton leading the show there. 23.9 points this week in week 3 against the Raiders.
Almost worth a second-round pick.
Almost worth it. Eventually, it'll be worth it.
No. He's getting back 15 on the year. Honestly,
yeah, he's playing well, and he's averaging 5.38 yards per carry. So there's no. I'm not going to sit here and disparage his games that he's played. He's been good.
I think he'll still be pretty well utilized, even when
it'll be a split of
Brooks comes in. So
yeah,
still playable.
Yeah, to me, they're not just going to abandon him when he's running at 6 yards a clip basically over the last 3 weeks. Zach Moss also had a really nice game for the Muskrats here in week 3 against Washington. 15 points, 12 for 58 and a touchdown. Also added in 39 yards as a receiver. So he's just been a really solid player for the Bengals. He's excellent in blitz pickup, so he's on the field a lot. And even with Chase Brown taking some of the touches, he's still performing. So just good solid start to the year for Zach Moss. Just a 102 performance for the Muskrats is just not going to do it most weeks in this league. So, obviously it worked out the next week, but we'll get there. Let's go to Battle Axes versus Lambs next. I got to go back to my banners. So Battle Axes take it down 152 to the Lambs 70.68. Obviously we know where the Lambs are at this point with their squad. So I won't go into too much detail, but I will try to talk about a few players here for the Lambs. Obviously getting good performances out of Cam Akers recently over the last couple of weeks. 8.9 the week that week 3 against Minnesota. And then last week he actually got 13 carries. So, he's a usable running back for James. Honestly, the perfect back for the tank is Cam Akers right now.
He really is.
And Lamb of God, CeeDee Lamb, also learning this week 3 that he didn't need to do everything and did 4 for 67, lost a fumble. Just beautiful tank performance once again for the Lambs. Carson Steele actually had a nice solid week and then executed the tank this past week for him for the negative 1.4. So just truly, the team is just, they understand the assignment.
Yeah, they get it. They understand.
The Greg Dulcich 0 is a classic too. I mean, that is just what a classic play. And then to have the wherewithal to bench Andy Dalton in his 31-point performance is brilliant. I love a good tank, James. I have done it and I enjoy it, and I'm happy. I'm happy that we can get some laughs out of the tank.
We'll keep an eye out for questionable start sits, but nothing so far has made.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything that is totally completely blown me away with that. I mean, obviously Dulcich has 2 points in 4 weeks, so that was a tough one. But what else has he got?
I think that's as many as Kyle Pitts, so it's hard to.
I mean, James does not
have
more
than Andrews.
That over the last 2 weeks for sure. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Oh my god. Okay, let's go over to the talk of the town, if you will. The Andrew Scavelli-led Toronto Battle Axes 4-0 start to the year. I do believe we owe Scavelli a little bit of an apology based on our preseason rankings.
He didn't make the trade yet. All right.
That is true. You make a good point there. We did not do that ranking with that in mind, so that's true. But I will say, even after the trade, I had a little bit of concern still, and
I still have concern.
I still have concern. Don't get me wrong. It's very old. It's top heavy. But that being said, these guys are playing their asses off. So it's you can't argue with the success. I mean, obviously, getting Baker to on your roster, he's the number 3 overall quarterback this year.
The best quarterback on his roster right now.
Not even the best when you got Jaden Daniels, the number 1 quarterback overall. Just literally lighting it up every week. Great rushing floor every single week, averaging essentially 28 points a week. So, I mean, really awesome for the Battle Axes. And then 2, let let's get up to these big performances from week 3. Saquon and Derrick Henry combined for 61 points from 2 players. So basically, if you pair up Mayfield, Barkley, and Henry, that would have beat James this week. So just crazy production there from your running back position. Both those guys are just studs. Barkley is the number 3 running back on the year, and Henry is the number 2 running back on the year. So really excellent start for the Battle Axes at the running back position. And even moving further down the list here, Sean, Amari Cooper for the big 2 touchdown, 86-yard performance as your wide receiver 3, really great. Stephon Diggs has been very solid, way better than I was projecting, and I think probably you were projecting early in the year.
Tank Dell being out is definitely helping, but
that is helping, yeah. But I just didn't think top 15 for Stephon Diggs at all, even with an injury. I wasn't really projecting that. So he's number 11 right now.
Oh.
It's pretty wild. So, like I said, I just feel like, a lot of these older guys that maybe we started to write off maybe for Scavelli's team. I'll be honest, even like Tony Pollard was a guy that I was kind of down on heading into the year, but he's been very solid as a number 20 running back. So at least, you have something solid there on your lower end flex side of things. And then, of course, Brian Robinson has been very solid as well.
That's the one that I think really
number 11 running back.
I think both of us like Brian Robinson, but I don't think we thought he was going to be.
I didn't think he'd be running for 4.6 yards a carry.
Yeah,
I mean that's kind of like. I mean the deal for Scavelli, just kind of going back and looking at the deal overall that they made preseason. The returns are tremendous. I mean it's just an outstanding trade to really get this team fired up for a real nice run this year. I feel like this is going to be one of the teams to beat if everybody stays healthy. So, all right, let's see. We got one last game here for week 3. We got the Kentucky Elk versus the Philadelphia Plague. Plague taking it down 121.92 to 94.9. Huge performance from Josh Allen in that week 3 game against Jacksonville. 38 points.
It's all in the first half.
It was all in the first half, and it felt like that game just felt like an explosion one even before the game, just because of like how little they had to do against Miami, where 11-point performance and they crushed them. It's like I feel like Jacksonville is just like we're just going to sling it around and really show off our offense, and that definitely happened with 4 passing touchdowns. So really great performance from Josh Allen, and that's what Dan's team is expecting from Allen on a week in and week out basis. Devin Singletary, Sean, not a really good week 4, but he did have a couple of good games week 2 and week 3 against Cleveland, 16 for 65 and a touchdown. Also added 40 receiving yards, which is kind of not really his thing. So that's nice to see. He can get some extra points there. What are your thoughts on Singletary so far? Is it pretty much just what we expect at him at this point? The ho-hum number 23 running back on the year?
It's a little weird to not have one of his strong games against Dallas when they haven't been able to stop the run. So that one's a little.
They got shut down, 14 for 24.
That's a little concerning, and that might just been like a come to Jesus for Dallas about like stopping the run. I mean that happened to the Eagles with the Saints too. They had a pretty good game against the Saints, but outside of that, they've been terrible against the run. So I mean, it could just be one of those weeks. It was a Thursday night game in division. Weird things happen. So I still like Singletary through the rest of the year. I think he's rock solid, man. Just a quality depth running back. I mean, he's running out as like a top 2 running back on this team currently, but I mean, he's fine.
Yeah, you got to get you guys in there. J.K. Dobbins, another kind of interesting storyline. Obviously, the first 2 weeks on our previous podcast, he was lights out, 20 points in both, but since has really slowed down. 5 points last week. On week 3 against Pittsburgh, and then just 6 this past week against Kansas City. So it feels like that he's been a bit bottled up the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean the team is just with a like pun intended injury plagued. Like both tackles down. Herbert's playing on like 1 foot. I think it's just
Herbert's looking tough out there.
2 good defenses coming into town or going against. So it's I think the real J.K. Dobbins is somewhere in between weeks 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So
I think it'll level out at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of just in general, like the big boom weeks, it seems like that happens every week for Justin Jefferson.
So good, man.
Guy is so damn good. He's so good. That catch he had last week was crazy. Just one of my favorite players in the league to watch. He's had basically 14 points the last 2 weeks. He's had a touchdown every single game so far. You just keep firing him up and keep reaping the rewards.
It's so crazy, like how much gravity he has, and yet he still like is able to just produce.
Yeah, I mean, he is. Everybody knows he's the guy, and it doesn't really matter. It's pretty amazing. He's doing it with. He's done it with every single quarterback he's ever played with, too. Basically, so he's just a superstar.
It's the complete opposite of the Garrett Wilson problem, right? Because you've got KOC in Minnesota that can just scheme up and use play action on like early downs and just kind of cheat his way into getting some open looks for Jefferson, as opposed to Wilson, who's just like go win an X receiver being 6 foot under 200 pounds. Like it's tough, man. It's tough to make a living.
It is hard especially on the outside too. Well, I feel like it's worth talking about Travis Kelce. A really slow first 3 weeks, but has turned it around in week 4. We'll get to that, but I feel like we can talk about him now as far as, with Rice now being hurt. Does that open this back up for vintage Travis Kelce, or is this kind of be somewhere in the middle of where we've been?
I think full vintage for me.
I'm kind of leaning that way.
Like we were talking about earlier, like it feels like preseason. Like this was basically his preseason was the first few weeks. I mean, he spent half the summer in Europe, like the Eras Tour. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot. He definitely looked a little out of shape the first few weeks. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. And the guy who has been running all of the Travis Kelce routes just tore his ACL. So I think that slot him back into his normal role, and he's good to go.
I mean, I tend to agree. I just feel like it's kind of the obvious choice right now. I mean, even, we're kind of back to where we started with the Chiefs receiver position, having Sky Moore getting trotted out there like a couple of years ago. So, I mean,
there's already been like a lot of trade rumors the last day and a half, not even a day and a half. Like the Browns just converted the rest of Amari Cooper's salary into bonus. So he's basically like free to trade for.
Interesting.
Like, money-wise.
Gosh, what a great fit that would be.
Davante Adams we'll talk about. Like, there's no way they'll ever trade him to the Chiefs, but that would be wild unless they offered him like crazy.
This is a great deal, yeah. I mean, I do think Kelce's going to start picking it up here, and I agree. Mm-hmm. Let's see. One other player to talk about for the Plague, DK Metcalf, a huge game in week 3 against the Dolphins, 4 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown. He's been great over the last 3 weeks, really. I mean, just 100 yards in each game. He's a superstar, and it's going to stay that way. He's number 9 on the year at the receiver position. Let's go over to the Kentucky Elk with their 94.9 point performance. They started the year 1-3. Stroud hasn't had a couple. He's had a couple of kind of like down-ish games, if from a fantasy point standpoint. Week 2 and 3, week 3 with only 11.8. So. Probably expecting more, but man, the Vikings really just shut him down in that week. I mean, they've been incredible all year long, and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. So just ran into the wrong opponent on this week 3 matchup. Oh man, is anybody going to get the more nominations for the Mike Davis Award this year than Zamir White, Sean?
No, that was like
he's the most obvious call of all time. I mean. I can't even think of another player that I would nominate before him. Like he is the most average, just the guy running back I can think of right now, which is sad because I really liked him, but he had 17 carries for 50 yards this past week, 10 for 34 the previous week, 9 for 24, 13 for 44. Just so mid.
He's making Alexander Madison look good, which is
they're trying to give him more carries now. Apparently, it's like that is the worst sign you could think of. Like
that team is going to implode.
Yeah, it's as soon as Adams leaves, it's literally going to be just here. Get the ball to Bowers every play, basically.
Or Brock.
Yeah, seriously, they're not going to have anything left. It's crazy. Okay, so Olave turned it around here in week 3, 6 for 86 and a touchdown. Kind of getting back to the Chris Olave that we expect over the last few weeks. Last week he had 10 targets for 8 catches and 87 yards too. So improving against the Philly and the Falcons the last couple of weeks. Really, the storyline of the year for the Elk has got to be Malik Neighbors. I mean,
so good.
The guy is unbelievable. I mean, he's crazy good, and it makes me a little sad that I was just one pick away from getting him, and I was just really trying to get him.
You could see like the like, I don't know, like the juice leave his body like at those like couple plays in a row on a Thursday night game, and they just kept peppering him. I was like, stop.
Like this 15 targets, 18 targets, 12 targets. This guy, Daboll knows it. Like this guy's the only shot we got.
I don't remember the exact sequence, but it was like he got like a quick like out or a quick like a quick just in, and just got absolutely just like stuffed like this by a defender, and he just stopped and like fell down.
Oh my God.
And then there was the other play where he like slid on his head for like a solid 2 seconds. And like after that, you could just see like he was just not present. Like
they don't give a shit. Throw him back out there.
Then he fell on his face and he concussed me. And they're gonna kill that guy the way they're working him. It's crazy.
He has I just pulled up Keep Trade Cut real quick. He is now the number 1 player on Keep Trade Cut over Jefferson, which is crazy. But yeah, he's really freaking good, dude. He's so good. I mean, every time I watch him play, I'm just blown away by it. He's so explosive. He's so talented. He's going to be one of those guys for a very long time. All right, and down the list, not a lot of great performance. Obviously, you got the Rashid Shaheed 0 for 5 in week 3. That was tough.
Yeah,
really just not a lot of great stuff. I mean, Devontae Smith being hurt, that's kind of a storyline as well.
Cheap shot out of the game.
That was some horseshit. Yeah, I agree. that was a pretty bad one. I'm surprised it wasn't Chris Olave, I'll be honest with you.
Which one was worse, that or Trevor Penning blocking Darius Slay into the benches on the side?
That was bullshit too. I mean, yeah, that's classic Saints football.
I think he injured one of his coaches too when
he did, or somebody on the sideline. Yeah. Jeez, I hate the Saints, dude. All right, moving along. Let's go to week 4. All right, so this is where we left off with the season. Let's go with Bombers Armadillos at the top of the list here. 153-90 loss for the Armadillos. Great win for the Bombers to get them to 3-1. Really good position for the Bombers to be in as we are through 4 weeks here. I really believe, we how much time we've spent on how much I love the Bombers. I'm just really happy to see them playing well. I mean, my team sucks right now, so it's very nice to at least have somebody to root for in these trying times. And really, let's start at the top of the list here. I mean, Kenny Walker, coming off of his injury, I mean, if he stays healthy, I think he's just going to be one of the best backs this year. I mean, he looks incredible.
Top candidate for not like best play, but like coolest play to happen so far this year, where he's just like breakdancing on that guy's spot.
I mean, to me, it's between that or David Montgomery's run last night, where he just
my God, I
plowed that guy and then just kept rolling. Dude, what a fun run that is. I mean,
that was Witherspoon too.
Oh God, what a great run. I was just, every time he kept like moving forward, I was like, how is he still standing? Like, this guy's incredible. But Kenny Walker's been outstanding in both games he's played. He's only got 59% of the snaps, but ended up with 29 points. He's doing everything, and I really think he's going to be a stud for the rest of the year. So a really nice, and of course for Justin, with having Charbonnet on the bench 2 years, you just don't lose production whenever one of them is out. So really great. Going down the list, Jaden Reed has been outstanding when Jordan Love has played, and I think he's just straight up a wide receiver 1 now. it's kind of looking that way when, preseason, it was like, who's going to be the guy? And I think it's very obvious who the guy is right now. And he's the number 2 receiver on the year. So
Wow,
I
really?
just, yeah, he is. Even with the couple of like
crazy.
mid weeks, he had the 30 point the week 1 and then 21 this past week. So, I mean, just really huge numbers in both of those games. I mean, he's a lock. You can't keep him on the bench anymore. Really great for the Bombers, who already had a great trio of Chris Godwin, Jamar Chase, and Marvin Harrison. Now we're throwing Jaden Reed into the mix. This is turning into a very scary team. Kyle Pitts for the 0, like we talked about. Just we won't harp on that too much. Deontay Johnson we talked about quite a bit already too. Chase, we can come back to here. 3 for 85 and a touchdown against Carolina this past week. Seems like he's kind of hitting his stride too, kind of after holding out all camp. Just kind of getting back on the train a little bit. Started Juwan Jennings this past week, got him 8.8. So, not exactly what you're getting from that week 3 performance, but really solid overall. I think Jennings is just going to kind of be more of a piece of this offense as we continue the year. But maybe just not quite to that week 3 level. 153 for the Bombers, even with the few kind of dud games, obviously from Kyle Pitts, and some slower games from ETN and Godwin. Still huge 153 output, so really good for the Bombers. Armadillos on my side, unfortunately lost Rashee Rice for the year. It seems like at this point, at least in my mind. I mean, if I can't imagine he's going to be back anytime soon.
Well, he'll roll his IR stint right into probably a suspension.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long 2 years with Rashee Rice in the IR slot.
I was listening to another pod today, and they're like, he went from like dynasty, like top 10 wide receiver to like what is he now?
I couldn't even tell you what he would be worth, like in a trade value. He's not worth trading.
He's just a hold and forget about him for a while.
I mean, and he was playing out of his mind those first 3 weeks too. I mean, I was really looking forward to having him. So that's obviously a huge hit for my team.
Reincarnation of Michael Thomas out there.
Just kind of feels that way. Just mesh slant. But it certainly worked for him. He was phenomenal after the catch. So that's going to be a tough one to absorb for my team. And obviously the 1-3 start, not what we were hoping for. But now with my IR pretty much full at this point, it's going to be a tough sled to try to replace some of the running back talent that I've lost.
Do we have a live response that we can get for the latest news from McCaffrey that he has Achilles tendonitis in both legs?
Both legs, which is just terrible. It's not what I want to hear. It's like every day I hear McCaffrey news, I just mentally block it out at this point. He doesn't even exist to me right now.
Dude, it's like comical at this point. Like
it is comical. Like every time I see it, I'm like, oh, what else could go wrong? This is crazy. I have 9 running backs in my roster and 4 of them are on my IR right now. So it's tough. So we're going to work through it. But, I did want to mention just Brock Bowers in general for a second. Even with the tight end landscape being so crappy, he just looks good. Like when I know we all know he's good, but he looks special to me when he touches the ball.
I would start him like he's a top 5 tight end the rest of the year.
I mean, I am not taking him out of my lineup. I might just throw in Ferguson and some flex plays and stuff, but just for me, that's funny. Like Kincaid is kind of the bench right now, which is kind of weird for my squad. But Bowers just looks great. I don't really want to spend too much time on my team because they haven't really done a whole lot over the last couple of weeks. So let's keep moving on. Let's go to your game against the Toronto Battle Axes. Scavelli's team just continuing on its war path. Just stop. He's already dead. Stop. It's like
the Derrick Henry 87-yard run was just nuts. I was like, well, maybe we.
I was watching that on the plane this past week. I was like, Jesus, this guy.
He just started going, and I was like, huh, there you go.
Back-to-back 30-point weeks for fantasy. Just
he's
miserable.
So good, it's like
number 2 running back on the year.
I like all the players on Scavelli's team. Like, just
I do too, man. I've always liked them. It's just I just was worried about age and I was worried about situation changes. But literally, I mean, Aaron Jones' situation change, he's been very good. Number 10 running back on the year. Tony Pollard's situation changed. Number 20 running back, but that's still fine. Brian Robinson for running back 11. Mike Evans, wide receiver 16 with 2 dud weeks. I mean, it's just so many good players. And
yeah, I think when like you like back out and look at his team, just like the Jaden Daniels like just popping right away, and those
huge.
the RB 3 and 4 with Aaron Jones and Brian Robinson are just such a big deal for
It's a
his
weekly
team right now.
advantage, so big. Like you play him if you look at his flex players right now compared to mine, it's not even comparable. I mean, like those guys are just putting up big numbers, and then not to mention he's got guys like Bucky Irving who are ascending at this point. To just we were worried about the depth. Like some of these guys on the bench are actually kind of coming up. So it's a really good situation right now.
I got almost 40 points from my flex spots this week, and I just got crushed. Like it's
gotta
do
be
it, man.
It's tough. I mean, and let's go over to your team here. I mean, even with like a Jordan Mason 23, St. Brown 16, like you said, big flex performances, 17 from Kamara, Kyron for 16. Even Daniel Carson's like, hey, I'll pitch in 10. So I mean, it's not a bad week at all for the long gamers. Just ran into the wrong.
Like it's not one that like if I'm top 3 in points every week, like what am I gonna like? It's gonna happen.
I agree. I feel like any week that you score 120 to 130, like you should have a shot. But to win this league, it's the big numbers. It's the 140s.
I find it like, and hopefully Tua comes back and like I can actually have a good Tyreek Hill the second half of the year. But like my team putting up 140 with Tyreek Hill basically in jail, which is funny after week 1. But
yeah, seriously,
like I'll take that. Like I'm good. I just got to get to the dance.
Yeah, it's you have the flex players to definitely make it to the dance. It's just a matter of getting there. So let's keep moving along. We had a really tight couple of matchups here that we're going to talk about. We had Muskrat's Plague. Muskrat's taking down the victory with a 100.20 point performance against the Plague's 97.9. Not a good week really for either of these teams, but somebody had to win. The Muskrats really needed this kind of win. I mean, even with the 100-point performance, some really down weeks from a couple of players in specific, but just had to just claw to get a win here because going 0-4 is just such a hard hole to dig out of. So, good win for the Muskrats despite the bad performances. We talked about Najee. Let's talk about Mahomes for a minute because, I mean, I thought Mahomes was going to blow up this year. I took him in redraft, obviously. So I thought it was going to be a much, much bigger season. And he just hasn't really looked that good, man. It's kind of weird.
Weird picks. Like not like he's he's just in cruise control.
No. I mean, that pick that ended up getting Rice hurt was horrible. It was like one of the worst picks I've seen all year. It was just not a good throw, not a good decision, not a Patrick Mahomes decision, really. Like I know he's always been a little bit of a risk taker, but it's just some really bad performances. And somehow they're still 4-0, which is crazy. But
I really would have loved to see this team before the Rice injury too. Like just seeing this team with Hollywood just on the outside, just as like a consistent like intermediate route winner. Even that.
Yeah, just somebody like 15 to 20 yards down the field. It doesn't have to stretch it, but just they need that guy. And I think
it's tough. Like they don't have their tackles are below average. It's probably
they weren't really good last year either.
And they got a rookie, and they've got was it Juwan Taylor on the other side? That's not.
Yeah, it's Kingsley Su'Matoa and Juwan Taylor.
Or Wanya Morris, like one of the two is playing.
I don't like any of those.
Bad. And then
I don't like any of that.
Your 2 top receivers, I'm going to say, just based off of the way they've used Worthy so far this year, out. You're starting running backs out. Travis Kelce's 35. Like it's tough, man.
It is tough, and I mean, not to stick on Mahomes too long here, but I mean, when you were looking at this trade again, this trade from last year, Mahomes and Laporta for Kyler Murray, Jalen Waddle, and Breece Hall. These are the guys that this Muskrat team absolutely has to have huge performances from. Like this is why we made this trade, and to have both of them being frankly just mid this whole year, there's a reason this team is 1-3, and that's one of the big ones. And obviously Puka is a huge loss, but we're at the point now where we're starting, Jacoby Myers, Calvin Ridley on a weekly basis. 4.9 from Myers this week. Calvin obviously coming down with Hopkins.
Quarterback, is Geno just the start moving forward? Like your default, like all things being the same, like would you just start him over Mahomes?
I mean, he's QB8, so his floor seems to be kind of in that 15 range. So, I mean, he's had 20 basically every other week. So, I mean, I feel like Mahomes also kind of has that floor too, where it's like this 16, 15. So, I mean, I would just rather keep the upside and just keep Mahomes in there in case there is those blow up weeks that he has. But I mean, I wouldn't say anything at all if they just put, if Alex just put Smith in the lineup. It wouldn't make a huge difference right now, I don't think, until that blow up week happens. So they get New Orleans this week for the Chiefs, so that should be an interesting one. Let's go down the list here for the Muskrats. I just kind of want to point out some other guys. Obviously, we talked about Hubbard and Moss. Rico Dowdle this past week probably had his best performance of the year. Not saying much with 12.10, 11 carries, 46 yards rushing, and a receiving touchdowns. Getting a little bit more work than the previous 3 weeks. So maybe this is kind of an ascension, but man, this running game is not good in Dallas, dude. I don't feel good about anybody, frankly, running the ball this year for them. I feel like they really missed the boat by not getting a running back at some point in the offseason. That's worth
in general. They're just in a bad spot, injury-wise, and
obviously Parsons being hurt, Lawrence being hurt. The Cowboys are in trouble. Let's see. Okay, we'll go.
Bench Swift, by the way, this week.
God. And you know what the thing is, like, I can't even blame him.
Yeah, like that's just a fuck you to.
I can't even blame. Like who? Yeah, I mean, he's got Moss, Hubbard, Stevenson, Harris. Like you got to just play those guys.
Outside of like James, I can't see if anybody would have started DeAndre Swift this week.
James, yeah. I mean, like maybe me just because I was starting Braylon Allen, but it's like I just have nobody else at this point.
Braylon Allen was the top scoring running back on that team this week.
Hey, I started him. He's been pretty good. Like he looks legit. So I mean,
I should victory lap what I said in the beginning of the offseason pod about him eating into some workload.
I don't even remember that, but I'm here for it, obviously. Yeah. All right, let's go to the next game. It is another nail biter. This is the biggest nail biter of the week. Is the Cheese Fries versus the Lionheads. Literally, fractions of a point separated this game. Cheese Fries taking it down 102.84 to Lionheads 102.08. And it's basically that just a couple of yards really just separated this game, Sean. And this is a huge matchup, obviously, for the Cheese Fries and the Lionheads in the grand scheme of things. I mean, both these teams, total contenders. Both of these teams did not really have a good week in the grand scheme of things. Obviously 102 is not a big number by any means, but in these kind of games, this is important in the long term, just in terms of win-loss, seeding potential down the line. So really fun game to watch last night with all the Monday night games. Huge performance from Jahmyr Gibbs, 19.8 points yesterday against Seattle. Just both of those running backs in this game were so fun to watch, dude. They're so good. The Lions have one of my favorite rushing attacks, maybe of all time. Like they're fun. They're fun to watch. And a lot of teams, when they run the ball, it's not really that fun to watch. So, but this is one of those teams that absolutely is.
Agreed.
Jahmyr Gibbs running back 8 on the year. Just ascending basically every week. He's got more points every single week. So even with that 50% snap share, 60% snap share, he's still crushing it.
I remember when he had a hamstring injury and we were all freaking out.
I do remember that. That was
so long ago.
I know. I remember like people were like moving him down the draft boards and stuff. I was like, you probably shouldn't have done that. Let's see. Next big performance, James Conner. Boy, what a stud he's been. I mean, obviously last week, little off in that game against the Detroit Lions, but every other week has had 16 points or more, has a touchdown in all 3 of those other weeks. He's RB12 on the season with a 2.5 point week 3. So he's playing excellent football. And as long as he doesn't get hurt, I mean, you throw him in the lineup every single week and take your 15 and walk. Basically, it seems like. Let's talk about Rachaad White for a little bit here, because I feel like he's an interesting storyline through these first 4 weeks. Just terribly inefficient the first 3 weeks. Couldn't get over 3 yards of carry in any of those games. Gets a good matchup against Philly in the run game there. But he doesn't look as good as Bucky Irving does, man. It's the eye test is a real thing here. How do you see this playing out, for the next, few weeks or the rest of the year, really?
Probably pretty similar to this week, I would guess. I think the running attempts are probably going to be 50-50 at best for Rachaad White the rest of the way. And the first game where they've kind of split it pretty evenly, he was more efficient. So why wouldn't you do that?
It seems to be working. Yeah, I mean, if you got Bucky running for 6 yards a clip and then him running for 4.9 this past week, I mean, it's pretty good overall running game, and probably should try that for a little while. So
I think it comes down to which of the two guys is going to be more relevant around the goal line. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, I don't remember a lot of that game because I turned it off. But
it wasn't a good game.
It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. I went into that game knowing exactly what was going to happen, and exactly what I thought was going to happen happened.
Dude, they just look like the most flat team I've ever had no interest in playing that game. Basically,
they punted a week in the NFL.
Yeah, they just said screw it, we'll take the bye, and we're done.
The only thing I was hoping for is the defense would show up just off of all right, well, we can at least mitigate the damage here, and they just they did not. Baker,
and it's funny because the Bucs basically punted the last game they played and then turned it right around. It was a very weird game. I was expecting more of a fight, but I guess not. So
yeah, Baker, when there's no pressure on him, he's great. He's a great quarterback when he's not pressured. When he's pressured, he struggles, but
he makes mistakes. It's that simple.
But the Eagles, I mean, when Jalen Carter isn't playing a backup, he's just not very good. It's just what it is. He's young, so he'll probably get better. But right now, if he goes against a starting interior lineman, he's not good enough to carry a defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, just for White in general, for Tibbs' team, obviously very stacked at the running back position, but having White kind of on the decline, I guess, and just overall value has to hurt a little bit, for the cheese fries as they move forward. But there's plenty of options on this squad for these flex spots, so it's not that big a deal for him. But obviously, a preseason you were expecting a little bit more. Any other players standing out to you on the cheese fries, Sean? I'm looking at Josh Jacobs kind of has been a little slower the last couple of weeks. But with Jordan Love coming back, I feel like that'll improve just overall numbers.
Going through bench, I mean, he still got enough depth with injuries and stuff where Debo is on his bench. So I mean, I think
Jalen Waddle didn't play for him either this past week. Yeah. So
I mean, Waddle
for obvious reasons
also in jail right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's got guys. I mean, there's plenty of players on this bench that I could find a reason to start. And actually, Josh Downs had a really nice week with kind of Joe Flacco being the perfect quarterback for him. Frankly, check down fest. So.
That wide receiver room looks really good if Joe Flacco plays.
They have talent there, dude. It's just I feel like if Flacco plays again this week and crushes it, bro, just let the guy play. Let the guy play, man. Just let
if you look at any metric on separation scores in the NFL, AD Mitchell is up there.
He's unbelievable.
Everybody.
I watched every single one of his all 22 snaps over the last 4 weeks, and the guy's always open. They just doesn't get the ball. He had one really bad drop though. I forgot what week it was. It was a terrible drop, but I mean, he's always open. So I was I just get this guy the ball, and Flacco would be the right guy for that. But now that Downs is back, probably not going to be super utilized. But anywho, let's go over to the Lionheads. Obviously, just a single point behind, but got really good performances from Jonathan Taylor, who's been outstanding this season. Number 6 overall running back, but just over the last 3 weeks, he hasn't had less than 15 points. Essentially, he's been awesome.
high ankle sprain now, so that's not good.
That is not good. It seems like they are not considering injured reserve for him.
It came out
So
and said it was like a mild high ankle sprain, which like I don't even know what that means. Like what? It's
a
either
mild high ankle. Usually, when I hear the word high ankle sprain or the phrase high ankle sprain, I'm thinking 4 weeks minimum. Like that's
mhm.
it's usually not as simple
Unless
as just let's go back out there and work it out.
yeah, outside of like quarterbacks when they come back like after like 2 weeks, but they can statue and throw the ball a little bit.
Yeah, I
But
mean, especially if it's not their plant foot, but I mean, a running back, it's a really
mhm.
big deal. So it looks like there's a pretty good chance that he's not going to play this week. So that will be a big loss for the Lionheads. Already losing Pacheco, so we're down to, uh, Bijan obviously is a great option, and David Montgomery is excellent as well. But the room is thinning out at the running back position a little bit here. Um, but that's why we have depth, and I do believe his team will be just fine, especially with the resurgence of my favorite son, Terry McLaurin. So
It's true.
he's been very good the last couple of weeks. Let's see, is there anybody else? I guess we could talk about Zay Flowers. He has been pretty much non-existent the last couple of weeks, but
It's the same. I guess it's the same argument for Andrews if you want to parallel those two. Like they're not
they're just a running team.
just running the ball.
Just running the shit out of the ball. It's like Madden 08. You just keep running it for 4 yards of carry and just take every first down.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not. It's like you only had 2 targets. Like what can you expect?
I mean, 6 targets over the last 2 weeks compared to his 10 and 11 the first 2 weeks. It's just kind of strange, but he's another guy. Like you kind of have to keep firing him out there just based on the fact that he's the number one guy out there until hopefully he turns it around. Elijah Higgins, that was a fun start this past week.
Oh boy.
But here's the thing: is like I like Elijah Higgins, and I will tell you that Vince knows this too. When he came out of the draft, I was like, this guy could be interesting, but he's not a thing. He's not a thing. I wanted it to be a thing, but I don't think it's a thing. Let's see, anybody else on the bench for either one of these teams? Dontavian Wicks, we should mention that.
That is an important one because he's very, very startable now for Vince.
I fucking cut him in redraft last week, I think. But it's like I just needed anybody with a pulse at the receiver position. But yeah, he's going to be a start player for the first season, especially against the Rams next week. Holy shit, Jesus, that's gonna be a huge matchup there.
He should have had like 30 plus fantasy points. He had
13 targets.
He had some pretty bad drops in that game.
13 targets, 5 catches. Crazy. Not very efficient, but damn, did he look good when he had the shots to make catches. So I mean, yeah, he'll be a starter for Vince moving forward. All right, let's get to our last game. Actually, it'll be a pretty good game here. Kentucky Elk with a 131 performance, and then the Lambs exploding for 117. Sean, huge week. Even with a Carson Steele negative 1.4.
Going into the game, like I almost sent the GIF from South Park of the Cripple Five.
It's funny. I don't think Dustin's team is that bad.
It's not. That's why I didn't send it. I was like, I respect.
Yeah, it's not that bad. Like especially with guys like Chase Brown, kind of coming out of nowhere this past week for a huge week. Like that's and he started him too, which is crazy. I mean, he's got Neighbors, he's got Olave, he's got McConkey, who's played really well this past week.
Did you see that touchdown catch from young lad?
Dude, he's good. He's really very good. He's so fast. He is faster than I even remembered him being like on tape. Like he's an interesting player.
I'm so happy they have an early bye week and they can kind of get a little healthy. Because
they need it. They need it bad.
For the injury stuff that's happened with the Chiefs, like I think they're a problem.
I think they can make a run there. I mean, I feel like with I think Alt and Slater didn't play this past week. So I mean, like, dude, you have nothing on the offensive line at that point. I mean, to me, like they can really only go up. I mean, I feel like the Chargers have a nice floor, and they're just gonna keep getting better with the time that they get back from injury. So I mean, really for Dustin's squad, you know, having Olave, having Neighbors, having McConkey and Worthy, especially Worthy now, you know, just really solid young receiving room there, and setting himself up well for the future with all the draft picks he has. So I mean, this year was always kind of a transition year, if you will, for the Elk. But I'm looking forward to next year and the year before or year after. It's going to be a pretty sweet setup for the Elk. But this year I'm not so sure they'll make the playoffs, but it'll be a battle. So I think they're going to be right in the mix though when it's all said and done. Anywho, let's see who else we can talk about here. We got Worthy for 13.3, 3 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown.
All off of that big was like a 50-yard touchdown pass.
I think it was 50, yeah. So I mean, he's going to be an interesting player to watch over the next couple of weeks with Rice being out, just to see how the Kansas City offense handles the situation. But he could be a bump candidate. And then Rashid Shaheed had a nice bounce back week outside of the fumble. But 11 targets, 8 catches, 83 yards. He's been very good. I was wrong on him too. I didn't believe. I know you were a Shaheed supporter prior to the year. But he's looked good.
I kept like pumping back my like love for Shaheed because I kept trying to trade for him from Dustin, but like he was around like wide receiver 30 for me going into the year, like somewhere in there.
Wide receiver 18 right now, so that's looking very good. Yeah, he just looks like a solid wide receiver 2, just for an NFL offense, and
they just funnel their targets to those two guys in the passing game. Like,
they don't really have anybody else
than I was expecting, which is exciting, very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, like an 11 target day is not anything I ever thought for Rashid Shaheed going into the year, so that's pretty sweet for Dustin's team. Let's go over to James's team. I mean, obviously 117, a good performance for this team, all things considered.
On Dustin's side, if I were to tell you, hey, you're going to get 15 points from your defense and special or your defensive kicker this week, like you're like, oh, cool, like that's pretty competitive with the other team, right? Right?
It is not. Young Ho Koo for 20 points and San Francisco D for 26 points.
Dude,
I mean, a combined 46 from the special teams unit.
That would have made me spit like water out if I would have, like, the first time I saw that when I looked at their matchup. I was like, where
15-46 outscoring from the special teams and defense. That's crazy.
They did not get the tank memo.
No, they said, screw you, we're going to play. But it's got to be fun for James, though. You put up 117, have a fun week, and you still lose.
You love it. You want to lose by 1 every week? That's
a good time. I mean, the point total, obviously he crushed my point total the last couple of weeks, so I can't even say anything bad here. But
realistically talking about his team, I think the guy that both of us would want to talk about is probably Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, I was kind of just looking at him and Lamb here back to back. I mean, Lamb, obviously his 16.6 is pretty standard at this point, but Brian Thomas, the first quarter of this season has been outstanding.
On just a terrible situation right now. Like,
just the worst possible situation, and he's still putting up points. He's wide receiver 15 on the year. He looks explosive. He looks like a wide receiver 1.
He had a hitch on the outside, and like when he caught the ball, it was such a quick first step around a defender on the outside with like no space. I was like, holy shit. This guy just moves different. He moves so differently.
Dude, it makes me think of like that LSU offense last year, just how much overall talent was on that squad. It's just crazy with Neighbors, with Brian Thomas and Jaden Daniels. I mean, God, just so much explosiveness on that offense. And it makes perfect sense why they had the years they did. I'm thinking, for James's squad, having CeeDee Lamb, Brian Thomas as your number 1, 2 for your rebuild is just an excellent situation. So, and honestly, even Keon Coleman has kind of gotten more involved over the last few weeks. Had the touchdown in week 3.
You got to be 51. You got to be encouraged. Just watching him on the field probably is a little more encouraging than looking at the box score.
Yeah, he looks the part. Just the way like Josh Allen uses him. Like he had multiple back shoulder throws already. Like back shoulder throws to a rookie is not something that I really see that very much. So, I mean, he's giving me in terms of just overall usage, he is kind of in that Gabe Davis-ish role, which is fine because that kind of works for his game. And as the season goes on, I just think he's going to keep getting better. I mean, he's so young; he's only 21. But like you said, the fact that they're doing these high chemistry type throws and using him early is a good thing, and I think he'll be better, even in better matchups in the coming weeks. When he gets Tennessee, when he get Indy on the corner, they're not great. I mean, they'll be Rams. I mean, like those will be better weeks for him.
That should be a fun game.
That will be a fun game, actually. All right, let's see. What else can we talk about? Obviously, the 20-pointers were huge. There's not a whole lot else here, Sean, that I'm seeing. I mean, Carson Steele, fun run there for a week, and it seems like that has kind of fizzled out already.
Talk about a clusterfuck at running back that's about to happen for the next.
Yeah, well, Clyde is coming back too, right?
Clyde's should be activated before this week's game, is what the buzz was, and then you've got Hunt and P. Ryan, and I would say Carson Steele is probably the fourth guy on that totem pole at this point, just based off of like the way they got away from him.
Yeah.
In the game. But like those other three guys are like basically the Spider-Man meme. They're like very similar style.
Yeah, kind of bulkier, stubbier running backs.
Good. They they're passable on like all three downs. Like it's so funny. I don't know. I wouldn't even know what to do. I think you go with Kareem Hunt just based off of the way he played. But
yeah, he played fine, and if he stinks, then you can try. I mean, they have plenty of guys to work with, so you just kind of just throw some guys out there and hope. But yeah, I don't feel great about that running game really much at all. The offense, they're killed with injuries right now. So, like for Mahomes, it's easy to say, oh, he's not playing well, and he's not, but he also does not have the same supporting cast as we thought he was going to have. So that kind of hurts.
For sure.
All right, so that's all the matchups that we have. So we'll look at the rankings, or the standings, I should say. We got Scavelli at 4-0, the only 4-0 team left. Just a dominant lead in points for. Really excellent, just season overall. The Baton Rouge Bombers are in second place with a 3-1 record over the other 3-1 records, the Lionheads and the Cheese Fries, coming in at 3-4. The Lake Lure Long Gamers are in the fifth position with 590 points for. So, Sean, tons of points, just running into some bad matchups. Obviously, I think you and the Muskrats.
I've played Scavelli and Justin so far this year.
Yeah, that's tough. It's funny if you look at the bottom of the three bottom teams: Muskrats, Armadillos, and Lambs. All of them are just getting beat up onto just the points against them. We're not playing well, but we're also playing against the worst team. It's like we're playing like ass, and we're also getting smoked in every single game. So it's been tough.
Yeah, it changes every year. Everybody gets that year, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I
remember
a little bit of handout last year too. So
yeah, I remember distinctly that Vince got absolutely shit on last year.
Oh, he got smoked last year. It's the worst.
He's gotten pretty fortunate so far this year, so it bounces back.
It's the age-old hockey term of puck luck. You just gotta get lucky and I hope it's your year. I mean, like last year, I didn't really have any huge major injuries last year, and I've had a zillion so far this year. So it really is kind of just a come around type of thing. So, anywho, so that's so the teams missing the playoffs right now would be the Elk, Muskrats, Armadillos, and Lambs. Obviously, still tons of time here, but getting dire for those teams. We'll put it that way. We're gonna have to start winning some games down here on the bottom. Let's look at this week's matchups real quick.
I'd say good luck this week, but I don't want to give you any good luck.
I got to tell you, I'm really going to need it though, because we got a lot of bye week issues. We got a lot of injuries. We do not have Jalen Hurts this week. We do not have Jameson Williams this week, and we're not going to have Rashee Rice.
I will tell you, like looking at Brock Purdy and Ayuk against Arizona, that makes me nervous.
That feels good. I will say that. Like I haven't felt good about Ayuk at all since last year. Basically, since December last year. There hasn't been one positive thing for Brandon Ayuk, so I'm hoping that there's any hope.
He, just looking at it, he really isn't, outside of that touchdown drop a couple weeks ago, he's really not playing that badly. It's just the ball isn't finding him, and I'm really worried that the ball is going to find him this week.
I mean, at some point, he's going to have that classic 49ers, blow-up week. Yeah. He's number 69 wide receiver this year, Sean. Nice.
I don't think there's anything on this planet at this point that can stop Nico Collins from just accomplishing the goal.
I asked for wide receiver 1, and he gave it to me. So he's just been he's one of the faces of the franchise right now for the Armadillos. We're very happy to have him. It's going to be a good game. I feel like my team, I'm still gonna have to pick up a different kicker because that Green Bay kicker absolutely dumped me this past week.
Guy sucks.
Yeah, he killed me. I was just like, oh yeah, good offense. Let's throw him out there, see what happens. It did not work. But I'm a little concerned with my flex plays against yours this week, just looking at them. But there's,
I'm just in my dilemma of which tight end to start every week. That's pretty much all I'm concerned about at this point.
I feel like it's you and basically everybody else in this league because I feel like I have 3 of the better ones, and
I think I'm gonna end up hitting you with a Tyler Conklin this week, but I don't know.
Man, I had Conklin in another league this past week and he just dumped me. So just like I'm just tired of that carousel down there. We got a huge week this week for Baton Rouge Bombers versus Toronto Battle Axes. That's a massive game.
Hell yeah.
So that's to me that's the game of the week,
of the year,
if you will. Game of the year. I mean, both of them are just been red hot. So I mean, this is going to be a fun one for this week, and I'm gonna look into the primetime schedule, see if any of these teams have any good primetime games. We might have our first PHU Dynasty watch party if there's a good matchup.
If it's a night game, I'm in. I can.
It would definitely be a night game, so we'll see. Maybe we should even do it for this Thursday with the Bucks playing Atlanta. That might be a fun one.
Can we invite Georgia Dome? That's a throwback for the OGs.
If you can find them, bring them back. Reanimate those dead horses. We have to get out there. Yeah, maybe we'll do it for Thursday because I feel like unless everybody's watching the game from different locations, that might not work as far as like being out and about. But
are they in Tampa or Atlanta?
It's in Atlanta, so
okay.
That should be better.
Be at the game, so that's good.
But yeah, maybe we'll just run a watch party and see if anybody wants to get together to watch it.
Dustin might go to the game.
Yeah, I feel like it's a good game in general. Just like the Bucks versus Atlanta, it should be a fun matchup. So be on the lookout for that, I guess, over the next couple of days, and we'll try to get that arranged maybe. Any other good matchups here? So we got the Muskrats playing the Lambs. Frankly, a must-win game for the Muskrats. I mean, must-win game, if you will, Sean.
I appreciate the badness of that.
Yeah, it's got to happen. I mean, it's got to happen. We need it this week. And Cheese Fries against Elk feels like a bit of a lopsided matchup there. And actually Plague Lionheads.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I think that one should be a good one.
And Vince starting both Falcons running backs.
He did this last week too.
I do love the hustle.
I think he started Trey Tucker last week too. I wanted to say something about that because I love.
Yeah, we should talk about Trey Tucker. He's been good lately. He's been good.
I mean, Trey.
I dropped him last year or something.
You got Trey Tucker.
Yeah, you don't need anybody else. You got Trey Tucker. Forget it.
Realistically, that skill position group, the running backs are bad. Given that.
Yeah.
But like with the tight ends,
receiving talent,
Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker, like that's not bad.
I mean, it could be way worse.
It's not great, but it's not bad.
I mean, you could have no supporting cast like the Giants have had in the last 5 years. Like it could be so much worse at those positions, but I think they're in decent shape. And we got another Elijah Higgins start potentially. I don't know, maybe he hasn't set this lineup yet.
McBride should be back this week. So yeah,
okay, that would help in the cause. All right, so that's gonna do it for this podcast. 1 hour and 1.5 hours. Okay, that's perfect. So be on the lookout. I'll see if I can maybe get that watch party set up for Thursday. I'll work with Vince on that potentially, and if it doesn't work out this week, we'll do one soon. Just to get everybody together. I feel like now that we're a decent way through the season, it'll be a good time to start that. And I think that should be it. Sean, anything else before we head out?
I mean, so far so good. Hopefully some more offense the rest of the way.
Yeah, God, I just want to see some better offense. I really want to see good offense. It's getting old, man. Mm-hmm. All right, let's wrap it up. Episode 77. We will see you next time on the PHU Dynasty podcast. See you.